Hey, so it's been a little while since I've done something that doesn't have to do with interpreting because that's pretty much been my life this whole year. But I noticed something when we were doing our presentations just like a couple of weeks ago or so, and it really made me think. If you have an emotional attachment to the language that you're learning, not just an attachment to it, but if you get emotional while you're using it, it can actually come out pretty fluently. It's so interesting. Now, this doesn't mean you won't make mistakes or anything, especially if you're more in the beginning stages, but I'm talking about more of, I guess, the advanced stages of learning. And it's interesting because I have a few anecdotes to share. So, when we were doing presentations, there was a professor, someone had just presented, and there was a professor who, he's a native Spanish speaker and he's learning English. Well, he's been speaking English for a while, but his skills are pretty good. But he talks a little bit slower. I think when we're learning a language, we all think about what we're going to say. We may be self-conscious, we may be nervous, and that doesn't allow us to speak naturally. But when he was talking about one of his students, I guess that's who was doing the presentation. I can't really remember the context very well, but it was during presentations. He started arguing with some of the other professors, or rather discussing with some of the other professors, and it was in English. And in that moment, I noticed that his English just flowed right out. I don't think he was thinking about what he was saying. It just came out, and it came out not just at a really good pace, like pretty quick, but also it was good. What he said was good. And then it reminded me of the time where I got fired up once when I was in France. Our class was a grammar class. It was just speaking. I think actually it might have been a phonetics class, but she would have us do some debates and things, and I remember the time where we had this one specific debate. I'm not going to go into what it was about, but basically there was a student and I arguing back and forth over it, and I got so fired up in that moment that I wasn't thinking of the French construction of how to say things. I just said what was on my mind and I was blurting it out, and it was coming out fast, and as I was doing it, I kind of had this out-of-body moment that was like, whoa, are you really doing this right now? Like, oh my gosh, as my mouth is just like moving and speaking and saying all these things as I'm fired up. And then it reminded me also, recently, maybe a couple months ago, I went to a Spanish speaking group on campus and then a French conversation group as well. And it was in the same day, and I hadn't done anything like that in a while, and compared to my classes, it made me feel good about my language skills. Like, I thought, wow, I didn't actually lose the language like I thought I did, or languages in that case. And I was so excited by the end of that. Then when I was talking to my friend, I switched from French to Spanish because we were done with the French conversation group, and I was so excited that it just makes me think, like, when you get excited in your native language, you just start talking really fast, your voice gets a little bit louder, and you could tell when someone's excited by their tone, their emotions, their speed, and everything. No one's really like, wow, I am so excited. They're usually like, wow, I'm so excited today. I went to the store, I got some ice cream, I ordered chocolate ice cream, blah, 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 and that's what happens when you don't think and you just let the feelings flow. So, the whole point of all of these stories is to say that, well, in that moment, I was able to speak Spanish without even thinking about the construction. Like, yeah, maybe in the back of my mind it was there, but I wasn't so focused on what people thought of me or trying to formulate some kind of correct grammatical concept. And I know people always talk about the fact that if you get over the fact that, if you think people are going to judge you, they actually won't, and etc. and everything. And if you get over that self-consciousness, that you'll truly be able to learn. And it's true. You'll actually do better if you're not so focused on what other people think, and that usually comes out when you get very emotional with whatever is happening. Now, before I said have an emotional attachment to the language, that's not exactly the same thing. I wouldn't phrase it that way, more like get emotional in the language you're learning, whether it's through a debate, doing something you love, anything. It could be a positive emotion, a negative one, preferably a positive one, but when you're passionate, that's when it comes out the most, and you'll be surprised at your level. Maybe you're not quite there yet, and you're trying to argue, and you get frustrated, and then you switch to your native language, but you may be surprised if you look back and see some situations like that. Now, has that ever happened to you before? If so, tell me in the comments below your story of a time you got emotional in your foreign language and didn't really think about what you were saying. I mean, you thought about what you were saying, but you weren't like trying to construct the sentences in your mind or translate or whatever before you speak or spoke. Alright, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.